I'm Ben Twiston-Davies. I'm a sculptor and I've been commissioned by Orion to make these ceramic sculptures for their Orion XX series of books. It's XX, as in the Latin numerals for 20. It's the company's 20th anniversary, so they've re-released 20 of their top titles and ceramic sculptures, because traditionally, in Britain at least, the traditional wedding anniversary present ought to be made of china. So with 20 titles, a great variety of subjects for the sculptures. A wolf, a fish, a tiger, so animals. A bust of Stalin, a little boy, human. We've got a house, we've got a lamppost, books, really everything animal, vegetable and mineral. So I think sculptures can make really strong cover images because they have a kind of emblematic or symbolic quality that pictures very often don't have. If you think in churches and temples, very often the focal point is a sculpture. And it was only half the job making the sculpture. The other half was to photograph it. And any given sculpture can produce a million different images depending on the angle it's shot from or the light it's shot in. It can really change the character of the piece. For example, that a portrait head can actually look happy or sad depending on how you light it, or sort of sinister or cheerful, depending on the light falling across the person's features. Joseph Stalin, a bust of Joseph Stalin, of course, for the cover of Simon Sebag-Montefiore's remarkable biography of him. The main experience of making this was actually quite creepy. I had to have dozens of pictures of him on the walls of my studio and was staring for a good week, more perhaps, staring into the eyes of one of the world's most brutal and murderous dictators. There's already a lot of existing official portraiture of Stalin. There was endless propaganda images made of him when he was in power. Nearly always something a bit like this, but with military insignia, I think a couple of stars on his collar. But in day-to-day life, apparently, I read in the book, he more normally wore just a peasant's tunic like this. And so I thought, just to make the portrait feel a bit more intimate, a bit more perhaps like the real Stalin, that's how I'd portray him. It was also interesting because, as we know, he's Joseph Stalin, you know, the most infamous dictator, tens of millions dead at his command. But he was also apparently in person very charming, you know, a very charming guy, and you start to feel that if you're looking at these pictures. He's an avuncular Uncle Joe. So it was a fascinating experience, but I perhaps wasn't sorry when it was finished. So it's been a great, fascinating project, really enjoyable. So many great books. I was a literary type before I was an artist. I studied English at university and then I was a journalist. So I love books, and it really has been a privilege to help celebrate 20 years of great literature.